in this modern age that we're living in, where fast-paced environment and instant food are the standard lifestyle, what we thought to be something that would make our lives less complicated is actually what gives life to a multitude of problems.
My quality of life became unbearable at times. I hurt much of the time.
Lifestyle, diet, habits, these are some of the few things that contribute to an overgrowth of microorganisms in our body that eventually take over our lives.
It leaves you very isolated and unsociable. You can't just go out with your mates anymore. You find yourself stuck indoors on the computer playing games where you feel safe and no one can judge you.
This fungal overgrowth, if left untreated, may lead to serious conditions and health problems.
I would suffer in silence from the intense burning or itching that I would experience. I just thought everybody experienced this, so I learned to hide my symptoms.
What is this, and why is this unknown to most of us? The human body has hundreds of trillions of living microorganisms, also known as the normal flora. They are present in several parts of the body to serve as part of the immune system in combating foreign microorganisms and helping its human host. However, these microorganisms may become harmful if an individual is immunocompromised. This could lead to several types of health issues, one of which is Candida overgrowth, or known as candidiasis. Eric Backer, a Candida specialist, provides deeper insight on this topic.
So Candida is a yeast, it's a naturally occurring yeast in our body. It's estimated that between about 15 to 20% of women, for example, have this naturally occurring vaginally, and 70-80% don't. But nearly everybody has Candida as a species of yeast in their gut, particularly in their large intestine, but also in the small intestine.
One type of fungal infection is candidiasis, which is commonly known as yeast infection. It originates from an overgrowth of certain types of fungal species known as Candida albicans, due to a disruption of the body's natural residing microorganisms.
Candida albicans was first really discovered in 1923 by a Dutch mycologist. So this is a woman who specialized in studying yeast. So she gave this classification Candida albicans, which is actually now protected scientifically. It can never be altered, that name. There's a very interesting story behind that. So in 23 it was given a name, but if we go back to Hippocrates, way back, thousands of years ago, people knew what, there was a yeast infection. They didn't know what it was, but it created some wide problem.
Yeast infection comes in many forms, and its signs and symptoms vary from person to person.
So when researching more about Candida through Eric's information, I discovered a plethora of symptoms I would never have associated with Candida. Some of these included foggy brain, so not being able to think very clearly, gut issues, general itchiness, UTIs, bad breath, bad body odour, hair loss, weight loss, being overweight, toenail fungus. Some of these symptoms I've experienced myself, and I know other people have experienced these symptoms as well.
When I was a teenager, I began dealing with an itchy, flaky, dry scalp and started treating that with a dandruff shampoo, like anybody would. I also, around the same time, maybe even thinking it was connected, dry skin and whatnot, was diagnosed with being slightly hypothyroid. So I was put on thyroid medicine and treated that way. Then I also, around the same time, began taking tetracycline and minocycline for about 5 years to try and deal with acne.
I used to be fit and healthy with my job. I was a postman. I used to do about 40 miles a day and go to the gym afterwards. Now I'm struggling to walk down the street without being breathless and fatigued, and it's just a struggle really. I've been moved onto the vans at work because I can't do the walking anymore, and even that's hard. in my breaks, I'd sneak off to the canteen and I'd try to have a sleep because I just couldn't get through the day because I'm that tired. The ringing in my ears is bad as well, especially when I'm trying to sleep at night with the insomnia.
That usually you first have feelings of fatigue, malaise, tiredness, and then also lack of sufficient immune function. So you may get some mouth ulcers, you may get some, different things appearing. Warts are quite common to appear, or you could get different kinds of infections.
I also began having some female issues such as endometriosis, digestive issues, sore throats constantly, and I finally had to have my tonsils removed because I kept getting sore throats over and over and over. From age 29 when this started, and I am now 61, I've suffered from this. I just wanted to give up. There was times I just wanted to die. I felt so bad.
GI presentations, the gut ones are the most prominent. The other thing I forgot to mention was that allergies are quite common with many people too. They develop intolerances or allergies.
One day I was in the classroom and my face just started to get really red and flushed, and I thought, wow, what is going on? And I developed this really severe face rash. So much so that I went to a dermatologist who said, "You've got eczema." And I thought, honey, I've never had eczema my entire life. So from there, I started to wonder, what's going on with me? And not too long after the eczema, I started to have some new symptoms where I was feeling pretty tired and lethargic, and I was eating food. I had an appetite, but after I ate, I would feel kind of crummy, and my stomach just always felt sort of sour.
So if we examine the small intestine, there's a nice thin layer of mucus on the inside, and you've got what we call the brush border. Food has to go through that, It's a very complicated mechanism how it works, but you've got all these tiny little cells with this mucus on it, and the bacteria and enzymes, they live in that environment. And along comes something that compromises that mucus, that creates small gaps to occur where things can pop through. And usually proteins will pop through and they can create allergies. So allergies are quite common with leaky gut. So many people who say they have an issue with gluten today, they ain't got no gluten issue, mate. They got a leaky gut problem. Now they can't tolerate all of a sudden. Okay, they can't tolerate gluten proteins. They can't tolerate dairy proteins. Most all allergies are protein mediated. You don't get carbohydrate allergies usually. You don't get fat allergies, you get protein allergies. So if you can break proteins down properly through a low pH stomach and an affected pancreas, it means it's going to much less likely challenge the small intestine. Yeah. But again, so many people have got a poor functioning stomach today.
Candida can cause a variety of digestive conditions, such as leaky gut. A digestive condition that is often associated with Candida is the increase in permeability of intestinal wall, causing microorganisms to leak into the intestines.
We never used to call it leaky gut when I was a student. I mean, if we used that term back then, we would have been definitely seen as complete idiots, leaky gut. But now, in fact, LGS or leaky gut syndrome is actually medically diagnosable term. A lot of medical doctors now actually really believe, well, it does exist, that it exists. We used to call it intestinal permeability. Okay, IP, intestinal permeability was the name for, and we didn't use the word SIBO, we used the word dysbiosis. So, but these just same condition, but the words have changed. Leaky gut occurs when the small intestine wall is breached or compromised. It very commonly occurs with alcohol. So people who drink alcohol on a regular basis are going to have leaky gut. People who take medications on a regular basis are going to have a leaky gut. It's known that the majority of the Western population have got leaky gut, a mild, moderate, up to very severe. So the only people who don't have leaky gut, in my opinion, would be people living lifestyles like in the Amazon, where they have cassava root, you know what I mean? They just drink pure water from the Amazon, stuff like this. So those people have got a very powerful membrane in their small intestine.
Eric Backer's first-hand experience and battle with Candida led him to become one of the leading experts on the topic.
I've been involved in natural medicine for a long, long time, since the 80s. I've studied naturopathy and I've been in clinical practice for many years. I've recently retired 2019, but I've had a very strong interest in digestive health, particularly gut-related infections, including candidiasis and SIBO. I've created many online resources. I've also been involved in product development for over 20 years in this industry.
Eric Backer, a naturopath from New Zealand, has dedicated his time in understanding the nature of the disease and has been involved in it for over 30 years. He has worked with some of the leading gut specialists in the world to better understand Candida and gut-related issues.
From 1983, I was 23 years old, and which was a few years ago, a bit before Google, and we had libraries and we had books. We couldn't get a lot of information about stuff, really, unless you went to a library or to a doctor about any kind of health condition. But I got sick. I was unwell. I had a stressful job. I worked, as a young guy, I worked in a flour mill for a few years, and it was rotating shifts. So, one day afternoon shift, one day morning shift, one week midnight shift. It was everywhere. So I got quite sick, stressed, which I later on discovered was basically adrenals. My adrenals had burned out. I also started developing cravings and, for sweet foods and things like that. And within a period of about a year, I got quite unwell. And then I decided, well, I better see the doctor. And of course, I got antibiotics and I crashed really bad. Man, did I crash. I was so sick. I've never been so sick in my life.
Candidiasis is also common among people who are taking antibiotics, because the antibiotics kill the bacteria that normally live in the body and compete with Candida, allowing Candida to grow unchecked. This is just one of the many common denominators that Candida sufferers share.
When I was about 9 years old, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and in that time my parents and myself obviously were completely depending on the doctors and the medical standards at that time. So for many years I was sick, not really completely sick, but I needed medication, so I was still young. For a few years it went okay, and when I went into puberty I didn't eat that well. I guess that's normal at that age, and then the flares came back and I was very sick again. At that time I also had some complications. I had a leak in my large intestine, and that causes abscesses in my tummy, and therefore I needed to have a lot of antibiotics at the time, I guess for a few months eventually, before they were able to kill all the bacteria, and that was not good, obviously.
The infection occurs when an imbalance occurs, and there are many reasons why you can get the imbalance. We get it when something's not right. It can either be a pharmaceutical medication, short-term or long-term. It can be a diet, but often there's a stress underpinning the reason why we get it. So we're not doing something right. We've done something wrong, and often for too long, and then the imbalance occurs, and then the Candida will take off. Because we've destroyed our flora, we've upset the balance, we've created a problem.
Eric Backer compares gut to a dying Amazon forest, in which our gut in this modern time has lost its natural environment.
I was watching the Amazon burning, and I thought, man, this is so bad. When I was a kid, we had all this forest, and now it's getting small. People's guts are the same now. People used to have much better populations of bacteria in their gut, and we know that historically by looking back. But people are burning and trashing their gut now with stress, with alcohol, with chemicals, with toxins, with everything that is affecting the gut. So if you think of people's microbiome biodiversity is getting smaller and smaller and smaller by the decade, and that's creating problems, big problems. We've seen cancer spiral out of control. We've seen young people now with diabetes where they should be a lot older. We're getting so many diseases, and so many of these people have got imbalances in their gut, including small intestinal bowel overgrowth, which we used to call dysbiosis when I studied, and also a lot of Candida infection.
I was always a healthy child, and In my young adult and teenage years, I was healthy as well. I was very active. I played 3 sports, and I ate the typical American diet. Not a lot of fruits and vegetables, lots of sugar, sports drinks, candy, soda. And I think that my diet and lifestyle as a child and young adult really contributed to where my health journey led me.
I was diagnosed with asthma at the age of 7 and put on corticosteroid medication, Pulmicort and Bricanyl. Also as a child, I had a fairly steady stream of sugar in my diet, so in the form of cakes and biscuits, soft drinks, lollies, some white bread. It certainly didn't feel like a lot at the time, but I don't remember there being a lot of restrictions about what we could eat. However, I've learned from that experience and certainly don't let my daughter eat as much sugar as I did at that age.
I think one of the biggest reasons we're getting candida, I look at it from 3 angles. High fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup, which is now in over 70% of food sold in the supermarket because it's cheap. It's the cheapest form of sugar. It's in everything. I believe they even put it in toilet tissue now, high fructose, to make it more flexible. Antibiotics in the livestock. Millions and millions of tons of antibiotics are still going into the animal chain in the US in particular. Poultry, all sorts of animals, and that's coming back to us. And the third one I see is stress, because it's lowering our immunity. The planet's been more stressed in 2020 than probably in the last 50 years put together. If we look at all of the incredible stresses people have faced and headwinds. And so if we look at the antibiotic problem, the stress problem, the sugar problem, people down on their luck, haven't got a lot of money for healthcare, they're high stress, they're going to get sick. And the gut often starts playing up first, and it will work to the periphery of the body. That's how we get candida, from imbalances, from not living a really healthy, balanced, stress-free life.
So stress has been a fairly constant part of my life, from putting myself under a lot of stress and pressure to get good grades in high school and university, to being in a highly dysfunctional relationship, parenthood stresses, challenges, and also just the everyday stresses. But even still, there's still a lot to be grateful for, particularly for me. First and foremost is the support and love of my friends and family through everything that I've ever gone through. It's been great.
These factors are too complex and too broad to rule out other diseases. So much so that oftentimes candida sufferers end up being misdiagnosed with mental health problems. And Eric Backer, a candida expert, is no exception.
I really didn't understand what was going on, and of course the doctor basically said, look, we've run tests on you, Mr. Backer, there's nothing wrong with you. I strongly suggest, after you've seen me now for the second time, that we need to get you to see a psychiatrist, because I think you have a mental health problem. Which of course made me furious, because I realized it was in my head, but it was candida. Because I picked up a book by that stage written by a guy called Dr. Crook. Not a good sounding name for a doctor, I know, but Dr. William Crook, called The Yeast Connection. I read that book and it blew me away, because in it I could see myself. So of course I took the book to the doctor, who said, Mr. Backer, you're completely deluded. Only women get yeast infections. It's not possible for a man to get a candida infection. Only women get it.
I've been passed around the hospital to about 10 different departments. I've even been sent to see a psychologist because they think that it's in my head. I've had no choice but to do tests abroad. And with the tests abroad, like the stool samples, they've come back saying high candida. And when I show my doctors that, or the hospital, they just look at me gone out. And they say, only women really have candida with the vaginal thrush.
One thing that people don't realize also is that cognition can get affected. Even the vision, you can get blurry vision from it. Flickering vision and strange sort of symptoms can happen. And these are the candida metabolites. These are things that come off candida that affect our immune system. Even neurotransmitters are affected. We've seen this with various chemicals that affect how we think and feel. They're also affected by candida.
At one point, I got really, really bad where I had vision issues. I had foggy thinking, gastrointestinal problems, big time, just all types of ailments. I even had one doctor that I went to tell me that I was depressed and that I needed a psychiatrist and wanted to put me on antidepressants.
So much of this research now you can find on the internet. So many studies have been conducted with various hormones that show it's a seriously big problem for many people. Joints can get inflamed, muscles can hurt, and many times when a patient goes to a doctor with 50 symptoms, they'll come out with 10 drugs and 3, referrals to different kind of psychiatrists and joint specialists. And this is the thing I would always look out for the patient who came in with everything wrong with them, with bags of supplements, saying I'm taking this for this problem and this for this problem. Sure enough, you test them, they've got a bacterial or a yeast problem. And all these symptoms are being manifested, are being treated with individual pills, sometimes by 3 or 4 doctors. It's crazy, absolutely crazy, how much money people spend until they get more of a central diagnosis. That's why functional testing is so good.
It is not uncommon for patients to get misdiagnosed or even ignored by their doctors. Candida can be difficult to diagnose.
I remember being brought into hospital once because my blood pressure and my blood sugar levels dropped to that low, and the cardiologist was trying to give me milk and orange juice and biscuits, and I kept telling him that I can't tolerate them. I says, because it'll make me a lot worse. And he sort of looked at me, gone out, and says, thought I was crazy or something, and he says, but you need to get your blood sugar levels up. And I said, no, because it will make me worse. And he says, well, why don't you just try chewing your food better and you won't have all these problems. And that was coming from a specialist. Yeah, you have no other choice but to turn to Google and forums online just to try and help you. And people give you advice, whether it's right or wrong, but you do whatever you can just to try and make yourself better. You try and tell the doctors what you found online, but they always say to you, why are you looking online for? We're the specialists, we're the doctors, you should be listening to us. But I'd be in a lot worse situation than I am now if it wasn't for people online and people's advice.
This was a turning point to Eric Backer when doctors didn't believe him.
I think the worst part was that nobody around me had any faith in my own ability to say, this is what's wrong with me. I knew I was sick. I knew it was wrong. I saw it in a book. I saw all the symptoms. I couldn't go to Google. I went to books. I ended up reading over 50 books on yeast infection since then and studying. And then when 1998, when Dr. Google came along, I started to study Dr. Google. And since then, of course, I've been, looking online, but you'll see behind me a lot of my old Candida books. I've got heaps of them, and some of them are very hard to get. And I've got some awesome books going right back to Dr. Orion Truss, who wrote a book in the 70s, The Missing Diagnosis. The interesting thing is, every doctor I talked to laughed at me. Now I go online, and guess what? You look at all the top medical sites on the internet, they all talk about candidiasis, a yeast infection. They all talk about the potential for brain fog. They talk about fatigue. They talk about the dangers, the risks. 1,700 people died in 2017 in America from Candida infection, nearly 2,000,
Candida auris, a multi-drug resistant species of fungus, is one of the worst types of Candida.
And now we have emerging threats which are bad. We've got Candida auris, which is seriously bad because all the 3 top Candida drugs now, it's resistant to them. Doctors are freaking out, but they laughed at me back in the 80s. They're not laughing now. It's a serious problem, Candida infection.
In a recent study conducted by scientists from Umeå University, they found out that the yeast Candida albicans can survive in low oxygen environment, hence shedding more light on Candida albicans' characteristics and virulence.
So when we're infected, our immune system gets very affected. One thing people don't realize is the Candida byproducts. So when Candida dies, it releases various toxins in the body. It also gets broken down into different types of toxins. Candida has the ability to shapeshift from one form to another. Okay? It can travel through the body. it can actually even alter the chemistry of the blood to make it travel faster through the blood. It's very smart. I call Candida the Darth Vader of germs.
Without proper understanding of what the nature of the disease is, one may easily acquire Candida infection without knowing it. Eric Backer, who spent decades understanding Candida, provides insights on how we can identify this disease properly.
You should see a doctor when you're unwell, but today you don't have to be afraid about asking for a Candida test. Okay? Most doctors now, maybe not medical doctors, but most naturopathic doctors, or doctors with an interest in integrated medicine, combination natural and medical, they can test you for Candida. So there's different tests you can do. You can do stool testing, you can do blood testing, you can do saliva testing. So in my book, I wrote about the 7 ways to test for Candida, because there's home tests you can do as well. I like people to observe people, to see, are they going to the refrigerator? Are they scratching their ears? Are they scratching their groin? Are they saying, honey, have we got any of those chocolate cakes in the fridge? Now, those are the things. Can you go down and get me some more beers? That's one test, okay? It's interesting, but it's a test, because if a person keeps hammering the other person about something sweet, it's a test. Then there's that scratch or itch test we talked about. That's another one. So these are home tests. Now, many people have heard about this spit test, where you spit into a glass, okay? And it's been called bogus, that it doesn't exist or it's not true. Well, it's not really an indication of Candida, but what it is an indication of, there's something not right with that person's digestive system. Because if you do spit into a glass, you shouldn't get big clouds hanging down with particles floating in there. It tells me you've either got poor starch digestion, or you've got very poor oral bacterial health. You could have gingivitis or periodontitis. There's some infection, something needs fixing. So it's a key indicator, it's a flag for gut problems, that spit test, but it's not like a red flag for a Candida infection. See?
After the albendazole treatment, I asked my primary care if I could get the comprehensive stool testing done. She had some reluctance because she wasn't sure about how to interpret the results, but she said, let me refer you to integrative medicine. They can help you with that testing. So I set up an appointment with an integrative medicine doctor, and I saw her in July. I completed the testing with Genova in September, and my integrative medicine doctor went over the results with me and said, they found blastocystis type 8, and there was also a high level of yeast in there. So from there, she recommended that I see a naturopathic doctor.
The tests, the more recognized tests, are the stool test, the comprehensive digestive stool analysis. That's probably one of the most, I'd say, scientifically validated tests, because you take stool, which obviously comes out the large intestine, and it's checked for yeast. If we can culture live yeast from that stool, it's bad. People should not excrete live Candida from their bowel. Okay, if the Candida didn't die higher up, it means you've got excess Candida in your body. If you're passing out live yeast, my next question is, excuse me, sir or madam, whatever, do you have an itchy butt? It's funny you say that. It's embarrassing, but yeah, my butt's itchy quite a lot. Every now and then I've got to rub my butt, and it feels better when I wipe with a bit of paper and things like that. So,
the diversified characteristics of Candida infection causes difficulty to sufferers in fighting the infection. However, taking these tests gets you one step closer to fighting Candida. Needless to say, there is no one single medication that will put a stop to Candida infection.
There's no single medication for Candida. Pharmaceutically, there are 3 classes of drugs that are used. The most common drugs are called the azole drugs: ketoconazole, fluconazole. These sorts of medications are used. Garlic, especially allicin extract from garlic, has proven to kill fluconazole any day. It's better, it just works. And it doesn't create resistance against Candida. Fluconazole does. Right? Creates resistance. I've had patients on fluconazole, sometimes weekly, for years on end, for vaginal infection, didn't do a thing, whereas the Allison took it out in 3 weeks. Yeah, it's sad, but true. So there's no single medication. It depends on the type of candida we're dealing with. There's so many natural agents that are effective against it, but pharmaceutically, it's getting less by the day, yeah.
Diet and lifestyle modification is one of the best ways to get rid of candida. This means we have to take care of our body by eliminating stress, cultivating good bacteria in our gut, avoiding toxic foods, and taking probiotics.
You need probiotics also to keep the bad guys at bay, all right? If we don't have a police force or we don't have a law enforcement, what's going to happen? We're going to get overrun. You need the good guys to keep the bad guys in check. That's why we need them. Right? And that's one of the primary roles. But there are many other roles that the beneficial bacteria confer. They also have an effect on motility of food and stool through the gut. They even have a controlling factor in hormones that regulate how we think and feel. All right? The gut is considered the second brain, the enteric nervous system. So, for example, hormones like serotonin are produced predominantly in the gut. Now, serotonin works with beneficial bacteria. People with very good levels of beneficial bacteria, guess what studies have shown? Are more positive, are more optimistic, they feel happier, they're more productive, and their life's going good for them. People with low levels tend to have more issues with neurotransmitters. They can suffer more from anxiety, cognitive dysfunctions. So the healthier the gut, the better the brain. And science is finally validating stuff that we've talked about for the last 50 years. The gut-brain connection. And in years to come, it'll all come out.
Several probiotic strains such as Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium help balance our good microbial flora, which allows our body to protect and strengthen its immune system.
Well, pro means for, so they're for health. Probiosis for health. So probiotics are things basically that really confer good health to people. There are many different classes of bacteria that we call probiotics. Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium are the two main categories of the probiotics, and there are many species in their gut, dozens and dozens of species of these in the gut. But there are other larger family of bacteria that are also considered beneficial in the gut. You need probiotics because they confer massive benefits to the body. Some of the benefits, for example, include controlling and regulating your immune system. It's estimated that between 60-70% of your immune system is in the first 3 inches of the small intestine. Okay, so most of your body's immunity is in a small area, and it's put there for a purpose because everything that goes through your gut is checked by that immune system. So you've got a lot of immune activity in that 75 millimeter area, a lot of it. Now there's a tremendous amount of bacteria around that area, okay? Beneficial bacteria, okay? A lot of enzymes in that area that control everything. Some of these roles, for example, of lactobacillus are to produce different types of antibiotics. So your gut actually makes antibiotics to control bad bacteria. It's got its own internal police with their own weapons, their own handguns and stuff, just sitting there. So if those numbers are down, we're going to get a compromised immune system. A good level of probiotics also stops invading stuff coming into the body. It will actually shout out and yell to the immune system, guys, there's a bad guy coming down the road, we've got to get rid of this guy. So then it upregulates the immune system to attack. So it works in tandem with it. It's incredible how the whole system works.
One of the most important aspects of eliminating candida in the body is by modifying your diet gradually and improving your lifestyle.
Yeah, I learned that diet was a huge role in blastocystis thriving, and my whole digestive world kind of unraveled in front of me, where I was able to kind of put pieces together. So I started to do that.
A few years after my surgery, I decided I wanted to do my own research. So I went on the internet and searched on nutrition, food, lifestyle, anything I could find. And I found the SE diet, that's a low-carb diet, where you strict yourself on starch and sugars, and I improved really well as long as I stick to the diet. But at that time I was completely fine. I didn't have any trouble with following the diet, even though it was strict. So I did it for many years. So by using this diet, I was able to control my health. I could stop with my medicines for the first time in my life. Really happy with that. So for many years, I was okay with that result. I didn't search any further. Around 3 years ago, I decided that I wanted to help others with my knowledge.
A Candida cleanse is an interesting term. Some people really take it the wrong way and they just focus on Candida. And that's a problem, because it's not good to look at just one problem a person has in their body. You need to look at the balance and to see what's going on. A person may, for example, have Candida problem, but when you test them, you find that's the least of their worries, because they've got 2 other types of bacteria and a parasite that are causing problems too. It's not good to focus on Candida. It's good to focus on restoring harmony of the digestive system. That's the key thing I really want to say about the Candida cleanse. And a successful Candida cleanse comes about through changes, as we've discussed, in lifestyle, in diet, in attitude, many different things. Some people can cleanse themselves from Candida in 12 weeks. Others can take several years.
So I had Candida Crusher and I made my plan. I started with the MEVI diet and was very faithful. My goal was to stay faithful to the very basic diet, MEVI for the first couple of weeks as he recommends, and then easing in a few kinds of whole grains, natural carbs as allowed, but I stayed off of all refined carbs, all sugar, all alcohol, all caffeine for the first 4 months. My goal was to make it to New Year's and then I would have a glass of champagne.
Well, I talk about the MEVI diet, meat, eggs, vegetables and yogurt, which is not my diet. It was a diet developed by a guy called Dr. Trowbridge, very clever yeast infection doctor, who worked out that meats, eggs, vegetables and yogurt tends to be a very good approach for people with yeast infection, because it's giving them meat, because a lot of people like meat, but you don't need meat. You can also be vegan on this diet. Eggs are a fantastic protein for most people. In fact, biologically, the best protein you can eat that's got all the essential and non-essential aminos is egg. Egg really benefits Candida people quite a lot. And of course, the vegetables we discussed, the colorful ones, the starchy ones, the fibery ones, sweet potato, yacon, that kind of stuff. And the yogurt, and I'm a big fan of yogurt, and I think sour yogurt is a really good one. But I've unfortunately got a diet sheet here from Cedars-Sinai Medical Center on the SIBO diet, and it actually tells people not to eat yogurt. It says avoid yogurt. It's got lactose in it. It says that white bread is what you want to eat. Lots of white bread. Peanuts are fine. Chocolate is allowed. All pasta's fine. I mean, this is for people with... These are sort of medical messages that people are given, that these sorts of foods are okay to eat. It further goes on to say that don't get confused reading labels. Just eat the food. Don't worry about what's on a label. So, and then people like me say, hang on, you need to read what's on labels, So this is where a big problem occurs on the internet. We're getting this sort of so-called medical scientific advice on telling you to do this. And then you get someone like me who may be not as qualified as Cedars-Sinai saying, come on, it's not the right approach. So there's a lot of ambiguity out there.
As Candida sufferers progress in their gut recovery, as well as diet modification, people may sometimes experience die-off symptoms.
Well, as you can imagine, when Candida dies or gets killed, it creates all sorts of byproducts. It creates what's known as a Herx or Herxheimer reaction, where the immune system upregulates. Many different things can occur for the person. They can get cold shivers, get nausea, get fevers, get sick, get major fatigue. It can be very nasty, can last for several days. And this is usually a result of a person doing too much too soon. Right? To me, it's no different from going to the gym Now, an old geezer like me going to the gym and then saying to the gym instructor, right, I'm going to bench press 200 pounds today. And she's going to say, you're crazy, man. You've not been here before. No, I can do it. I'm strong. Look at me. I've got muscles, you know. Next thing I do 150 pounds, I can't move my arms for 2 months after I've got, you know. But it was my own stupid fault. I'm not saying people are stupid, but what I'm saying is many people hit it with such force, with so many tablets, with so much garlic. They say, I'm sick of it, I'm going to take it out. Okay? The collateral damage is bad if you do that. All right? It's good to use a heavy hammer with a soft hand. You know what I mean? Use a nice soft hand with a heavy hammer. Don't use a heavy hand with a soft hammer. Use very softly. And when people go gentle with the Candida, they can take it down nice and gently in steps and have no die-off at all. I've worked with so many people and helped them to cleanse from Candida that never experienced die-off. And when the person did have die-off and they came to me, it was because of what someone else said or what they did as when they followed Dr. Google. And usually it's because they took way too much stuff. They took a medication on day 1 and they felt nothing. So the following day they take 3-4 times as much for 2 or 3 days to think, I'm going to push this through. I've seen grown men cry like babies in this approach, like babies, crying on the phone, literally from just feeling so sick in their gut from the die-off. Yeah.
Choosing the right food and diet is just as important as doing and executing it the right way in order to avoid die-off symptoms. Eric Backer talks about his diet approach called the warm turkey approach.
The warm turkey approach, okay? Cold turkey means stopping and starting. Warm turkey is you slowly come down off your diet. So I give people a 2-week transition period to come off their diet and slowly work into another diet. So if someone's drinking, 3-4 cans of Red Bull a day, for example, I don't want them drinking Red Bull in 2 weeks. I want them over that 14-day period to cut Red Bull. If they can't, they need to come back when their addiction is being sorted. Whether it's an alcohol addiction, a Red Bull addiction, I don't care what kind of addiction. If there's an addiction there, that's a different ballgame, But they must be at a position after 14 days where I can start working with them. The diet may not be perfect at that stage, and I don't expect it to be. I expect to work with that patient over a period of 3 to 6 months to slowly tailor that diet to suit that patient, okay? Because I'm not that lady or guy in that room. I'm here. I've got a different culture, different climate, different diet than that person has. So I'm trying to work the best solution for that person. So that's the difficult part about my job. There was no succession when I left. I didn't train anybody when I do. You can't train people in specific type of work like this. You just can't. Well, the main foods that we really want to avoid, as I mentioned, is probably most of the stuff you get in the supermarket. Okay? The processed foods, packaged foods, canned foods, candy, ice creams, any of that kind of stuff. A real big one is soda drinks because they're so full of sugar today. And diet foods are so bad because they have all these artificial sugars in it. So people eat these like low-cal diet stuff. It's no good. I was shocked when I was in America to see how many yogurts have got artificial sweeteners in them. It's crazy. I had to go to a special health food shop and I found a couple of containers of like a proper sour yogurt and normal yogurt. But I said to the lady in the health food shop, and this was quite a significant shop in Los Angeles, I said, why don't you have a refrigerator full of like healthy natural yogurt? And she said, no one's going to buy that stuff. It doesn't taste good. So I worked out when people say something tastes nice, it's because it's got sugar in it.
So I'm the kind of person that when I am convinced of something, I go for it. So it took me 10 or 15 years to get to the place where I had all the information and felt comfortable really making this decision to be serious. But once I did, I was all in. And really, it probably wouldn't have happened sooner. Before that, I was a young adult and I was, a young married person, and eating healthily and being very regimented and strict with yourself is really not what young adulthood is like. And so we ate plenty of takeout and enjoyed plenty of wine, and I probably could not have been bothered to get serious sooner. So the timing was right, and I dove head first. And a couple of the changes that I told my husband to be aware of, I knew, as per Eric's recommendation, not to try to change my husband and my child too much, but I did warn my husband that we were going to start spending a little bit more on food. I love being on a budget and love saving money, as does my husband, and so I knew that this would be a step up. We were going to start buying all antibiotic-free meat and organic as much as possible, organic fruit and veg as much as possible, and so I knew our bill for food would go up. But at the same time, I said, I think our medical bill will go down. And really, that's exactly what happened.
The foods to eat, obviously, are the foods that grow out of the ground, that grow underground, or that run around on the ground, if you get my drift. We're talking like stuff that's actually living, not dead, okay? So foods, preferably that are vegetables and fruits. And my favorite ones are the ones high in polyphenols, or like the dark colors, the purples and the blues. Those are the vegetables we grow a lot here at our place because they contain a lot of anthocyanins or antioxidants, which help to reduce, a lot of damage in the body. Blueberries, for example, fantastic food. I like people to consume foods rich in fructooligosaccharides, or FOS, and also galacto-oligosaccharides. So these are prebiotics, basically, prebiotic sugars that you find in foods. So FOS, for example, we're going to get burdock, chicory, Jerusalem artichokes, yacon. I mean, people not even heard of these foods, but many people around the world have eaten these foods for generations. These foods contain sugars and starches in them that are very beneficial for our gut. They build massive amounts of good bacteria. Garlic is another one. There wouldn't be a day going by that we don't eat garlic and onions. We eat them every day. And if you look at Indian people, people in the Asian continent, bok choy, brassicas, onions, spring onions, these are staple foods. Every single day Asian people eat these foods. In America, what do they eat every day? Everything's got mustard on it and some sauce and squirted on top of it, and it's just bathed in sweet sauces, and it's usually over-processed, overcooked. These are the foods we don't want to eat, The GOS foods, or galacto-oligosaccharide foods, have good sugars in them. The brassicas, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, Chinese vegetables, which are some of my favorite foods. These are bitter foods that stimulate the production of enzymes in the body. These are foods also that break down to form food for the good bacteria. These are foods also that upregulate our liver function, that allow detoxification, of a lot of rubbish out of the body. This is how people should be eating, in my opinion. Sunflower seeds, almonds, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds. These are all foods rich in minerals, rich in fiber, and rich in prebiotic sugars. These are perfect foods for people to eat. And guess what? They taste good too. It just takes a little bit of effort. Pumpkin seeds, for example, you can roast a few, throw it on top of any kind of food. Lots of zinc in them, lots of magnesium, really healthy. Instead of sprinkling some type of a salad dressing on it with lots of sugar in it. Every salad dressing I found in the supermarket contains high fructose corn syrup. Every single salad dressing. So I make my own. Keep away from that stuff.
These are probably a handful of choices and information, but they all boil down to the same thing: taking care of our gut health, mental health, and overall well-being whilst maintaining a balanced life.
I see Candida issues as predominantly being a lifestyle disease. So I take more time and care with my diet these days, and I also take more time and effort to deal with stressful situations and dealing with that more effectively.
If you don't want to suffer from Candida, try not to have too many imbalances in your life. It's like any other area of your life. If you want to have a good profession or a good relationship, you've got to work on it. You have to work on it. And it's the same with the health. You have to look at the different things that make up your health and work on those aspects. Every patient will have a weak link. You know what I mean by the weak link? So something's not quite right. That's why they came to see me. And that weak link could be low self-esteem. It could be an addiction. It could be a sexual problem. It could be a mental health problem. They could suffer from autism, Asperger's syndrome or something. There could be some issue underpinning it.
I often take time every now and then to reflect on where I've been during the past 3 years and how far I've come with my understanding about health and well-being. And I really have Dr. Backer to thank for that, because if I hadn't found his videos, I'm not quite sure where I would be health-wise. I'm sure I would be eating crappy food still, and I'm sure, if I had developed this parasitic roundworm infection at some point, which I probably would have, that I may have had a blockage, I may have had serious complications, and that to me is really scary, and I'm really thankful that I found Dr. Backer. And I always tell my family and my friends that, this information is out there. All you need to do is search it out. And if you have questions, ask me. I can help you. And I think that's the most important thing, to not only be your own advocate, but help those that you love be their own advocates as well.
Take-homes. The biggest take-home is avoid antibiotics at all costs. So if you have to take antibiotics, make sure it's for a very specific reason and for the shortest possible time. Because in my mind, it's like a nuclear bomb. When you take it, it can sometimes set off a chain reaction you can't stop, and you can get sick for a long time after antibiotics. So be very careful about taking them. Check with your doctor. If you need to take them, then you do. Be mindful of the high fructose corn syrup and artificial sugars. Read labels. Please read labels. Try not to eat much processed food at all. The most processed foods I would ever eat would be canned fish, I would say, okay, like a can of sardines or something. If you can move more towards that, I think your gut's going to repay you 100-fold by doing so. The third point is the water. People need to drink lots and lots of fresh, clean water, and not many people do. They say they do, but in my experience, it's not what they do. They pay lip service to it. Don't use plastic bottles, chuck them away. Get yourself a bottle, like I've got a plastic Tupperware kind of bottle here. This will last me for years. I take it, different places. I don't like disposable. I never have liked disposable ones. The next point is the sleep. Young people today sleep 1.5 to 2 hours less per night than people did in the 70s. So then they're already on the back foot. All right? When I look at the statistics on how many people eat a meal over Facebook, it was absolutely disgusting. It was something like 30% of the population in America particularly eat a meal over social media. These things are not good. Taking devices to bed, spending all your time online. We never had these challenges when I was in my 20s and 30s. We've got them now. These are things that are affecting people. They're not getting that natural balance, that sleep anymore at night. Too much stimulation. I like wide screens like anyone and stuff, but I wouldn't be sat up there all night, You need to get to bed usually around 9:30, 10 o'clock. That's no joke. You need to get to bed about that time and sleep soundly till, I really like people to get up around 7, 6, 7, 8 a.m. Just get up. It's really good to do that and to get into a nice regular rhythm, because this is what the body likes. The bowel will work at certain times. The appetite will work at certain times. No different from you going to work. You can't just say to your boss one day, come in at 11 o'clock. I don't want to come in at 9 o'clock. I'll come at 11. Or your boss wants you there at this time. Maybe it's an idea you could carry on the rest of your life. Get up at a set time. Have a shower at a set time. Have your breakfast at a set time. Don't just dismiss all these things. We talked before about instinctive eating. Listen to your gut. When you get into these routines, guess what? Your gut will tell you what time it is. Your tummy will make a bit of a sound and you'll think, it must be 7. And you look at the clock, it's 2 minutes to 7. That's how your body works, But yeah, it's up to the person how they decide to choose to live their life. But if they want to prevent Candida, that's how you prevent Candida. Self-awareness, correct diet, good lifestyle habits, and you can prevent a lot of diseases. And then hopefully die a healthy person when you get older.
It goes to show that with the right amount of proper diet, probiotics, healthy lifestyle, and precautionary measures, Candida can eventually be eliminated. And that Candida in the years to come will be more understood by health practitioners and health professionals.